This is Pegasus Launch Control at launch minus 1 hour, 27 minutes and counting. Preparations are on schedule for the launch of the Orbital Sciences Pegasus XL rocket carrying NASA's IRIS spacecraft. The call to stations for the launch team was at 2 o'clock this afternoon Pacific time, and the launch countdown began at 2:30 p.m., approximately 5 hours prior to the opening of the launch window. Going through the pre-takeoff checklist takes 3 hours and 35 minutes to complete. The L-1011 is scheduled for departure at 6:15 p.m. Pacific time, with the drop of the Pegasus from the L-1011 targeted to occur precisely at 7:27:34 p.m. Pacific time. The planned launch window is 5 minutes in duration. The time from the L-1011 wheels up to the drop of the Pegasus is 58 minutes. The weather forecast for today continues to call for a 20% chance of not meeting the launch weather criteria, primarily due to cloud constraints. For NASA, this will be the 19th flight of a Pegasus rocket, the 42nd Pegasus launch for Orbital Sciences. We'll look now at a brief video telling the story of the IRIS mission and our preparations by the Launch Services Program to launch the IRIS spacecraft today on the Pegasus XL.
Researchers will soon send a 7-foot-tall observatory on a mission to discover some of the secrets behind the largest body in the solar system, the Sun. Scientists placed a renewed emphasis on the Sun in recent years since it plays such a large role in everything from determining our planet's climate to knocking out orbiting satellites and even taking down power grids on Earth. After launching into Earth orbit aboard a winged Pegasus rocket, NASA's IRIS spacecraft, short for Interface Region Imaging Spectrograph, will stare at the Sun with a steady eye, concentrated on the region between the Sun's surface and its blazing atmosphere, or corona. The region is called the chromosphere, and it's here that temperatures rise from 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit on the surface to millions of degrees in the glowing corona. Researchers don't know why that change occurs, but are betting IRIS will tell them.
I think that the uniqueness of this mission and why it's important is that the mission is looking at the Sun, our only Sun. We know a lot about the surface of the Sun. Massive temperature changes occur in this region. Why? We don't understand this unique region of the atmosphere of the Sun.
IRIS will show the solar chromosphere in more detail than has ever been observed before. My opinion is that we're bound to see something we didn't expect to see.
The Sun often is thought of as little more than a giant nuclear furnace that sits at the center of the solar system and warms our planet. But its effects on Earth are profound, with its heat-driving weather patterns and CMEs, commonly known as solar flares, emitting blasts of radiation into space that threaten satellites and communications networks.
The Sun affects our weather. The Sun affects us in a lot of different ways.
The IRIS spacecraft will study the Sun in conjunction with other solar-sensing spacecraft, including NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory, or SDO. The main difference between the IRIS mission is that it looks at a tiny portion of the Sun at a time, not the whole disk.
It almost acts like a microscope for SDO's overall telescope. So it's going to look in closely, and it's going to be looking at that specific region to see how the changes in matter and energy occur in this region.
Scientists designed the instrument to return specific data, but they also expect some unexpected results from time to time, too.
The big surprises will come when we start to see the data, because we know to some extent what we hope to learn, what types of observations will answer those questions, but there's always that element of surprise.
A Pegasus rocket built by Orbital Sciences has been employed to lift the observatory into Earth orbit. The Pegasus, which with its wing and tail sections looks a lot like an airplane, is the only launcher of NASA mission that drops from a converted airliner before igniting its first stage engine. Designed as an inexpensive alternative to launch small missions, Pegasus rockets have recorded dozens of successful launches.
The Pegasus launch system is unusual and unique in that you have a mobile launch pad. Pegasus is dropped from the belly of an L-1011 aircraft at 40,000 feet that's traveling downrange at over 500 miles per hour. Pegasus launch system has the theoretical capability of launching from any point on the surface of the Earth.
Pegasus missions have begun from Cape Canaveral, Florida, Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia, Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, and Kwajalein Atoll in the Pacific Ocean. Because the IRIS spacecraft will fly a path that takes it roughly over each of Earth's poles on each orbit, the mission will launch from Vandenberg. The L-1011 will take off from Vandenberg and release the rocket off the California coast, heading south.
What I'll remember most about the IRIS launch is what I remember from all my missions, and that's the people. I'm blessed with a terrific launch team, the NASA team members, as well as Orbital Science Corporation and Lockheed Martin for both the launch vehicle and spacecraft, all terrifically talented and eager and excited to go launch IRIS.
The biggest surprise will come once the mission is launched and it starts to observe the sun. We always try to map out what sort of events we're going to be targeting, what sort of observations we will be making of those events to improve our understanding of the solar atmosphere and space weather.
We're always looking for the answers of why the physics of our solar system and our planets work. And everything starts at the root with the sun.
This is Pegasus Launch Control at launch minus 1 hour 19 minutes 51 seconds and counting, continuing toward a targeted taxi of the L-1011 at 6:15 Pacific time. Right now the fairing area is being prepared for that taxi. Here we see the nose and the fairing of the Pegasus rocket and the final disconnection of the system so that we're now ready to taxi to the end of the runway. IRIS is planned as a 2-year NASA Small Explorers solar science mission. Our partners are Lockheed Martin Space Systems, the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory, Montana State University, Stanford University, and the NASA Ames Research Center. At launch minus 1 hour, 18 minutes, 50 seconds and counting, this is Pegasus Launch Control.
We did that in the briefing, yeah.
Okay, roger that.
LC vehicle ground up.
And vehicle LC, go ahead.
Step 111.1, PWP 16020, part 6 complete.
LC copies vehicle, and vehicle step 114, report vehicle closeout when vehicle closeout is complete, and report when ready for taxi.
LC vehicle, RBF items removed, area clear, PWP 16020 complete, ready for taxi.
LC copies vehicle, we'll go ahead and check step 114 complete. Launch team, this is LC on ground ops. At this time, activity on ground ops will now terminate. Transition all operations to countdown net and mission frequency. Our assigned mission frequency to begin with will be Victor 1. Check step 115. Go, Peg. LPO, LC, ground up.
LC, Peg 10, in work. LC, Peg 10, Duitron recording, ready for taxi.
And Peg TM, I copy that. Duitron's recording. You're ready for taxi. Check step 116 complete. And Peg, LC on countdown 1. Report ready for taxi.
LC, Peg, ready for taxi.
LC copies. Check 118 complete. And launch team LC on countdown 1 with an updated status. The engineering team has worked a new waiver that's been approved by management. This is actually an update to an existing black line. This is Echo 2, item number 8. This is the fairing air temperature at 0 and 180 degrees. Takeoff criteria is now less than or equal to 25 C for 15 of the last 30 minutes. Again, that's for takeoff criteria. Temperature is now less than or equal, is less than or equal to 25 degrees C for 15 of the last 30 minutes.
This is Pegasus Launch Control, launch minus 1 hour, 12 minutes, 36 seconds and counting. Our L-1011 now taxiing toward the end of the runway. Our Captain Don Walter is talking with our launch conductor Adam Lewis here in the Mission Director Center. He has also been talking with our chase plane pilot Jim Less, and we anticipate seeing the chase plane to depart as well. Just cleared the captain to start engine number 3 on the L-1011.
on go, no go. NASA CE.
NASA CE is go.
SMA.
SMA is go.
SMD.
SMD is go.
NASA MIM.
NASA MIM is go.
NAM.
NAM is ready.
NLM copies. The NASA team is ready for the orbital carrier aircraft takeoff.
Operation. In our mission constraints document, under section Echo Decimal 2 mission specific constraints, item 1, under takeoff criteria, our no earlier than time for today's operation is 012758 UTC. Our no later than time is 013258 UTC. Our fill in the blanks for our checklist. Step 130, waypoint P climb. We're expecting L minus 43 minutes for waypoint P climb. Step 130. Waypoint P power, we'll be expecting L minus 29, that's L minus 29 minutes. Step 135, waypoint P launch, L minus 25 minutes, that's L minus 25 minutes. Waypoint P turn, step 137, L minus 21 minutes, that's L minus 21 minutes. And step 138, waypoint P INS, L minus 17 minutes, L minus 17 minutes. Under our board checklist, step Alpha 18, RTB checklist, you will be directed to page 39, step Bravo 1.
This is Pegasus Launch Control at launch minus 1 hour, 7 minutes, 36 seconds, and counting. Our L-1011 taxiing toward the end of the runway. We've also seen our F-18 chase plane taxiing out for a departure, which will take off just about 2 minutes ahead of the L-1011. The F-18 comes from NASA's Dryden Flight Research Center at Edwards Air Force Base. And as we mentioned, Jim Less is the F-18 pilot today, and the chase plane video camera operator or videographer is Laurie Losey. And at this time, everything is continuing on schedule for our departure. Which is planned for 6:30 and 28 seconds. At launch minus 1 hour, 6 minutes, 19 seconds, and counting, this is Pegasus Launch Control. This is Pegasus Launch Control. This is the F-18 takeoff or chase plane on the takeoff roll. We should be getting video from that very shortly after airborne. And the chase plane is in the air, so we should be getting some video back to the ground of the L-1011 on the runway very shortly. Live video again from the F-18 chase plane. Lori Losi from Dryden operating the video camera. Looking back now at the Dryden airfield, or rather the Vandenberg airfield. This plane is based at Dryden Flight Research Center and actually flew over to Vandenberg from Dryden this afternoon. Less than 2 minutes away from the departure of the L-1011 with the Pegasus rocket carrying NASA's IRIS Observatory. Once the L-1011 departs, it will be headed for an area approximately 100 miles northwest of Vandenberg Air Force Base over the Pacific Ocean.
And Launch Team LC on countdown 1, we've now completed our pre-takeoff checklist, ready to begin climb cruise. MIFCO LC on countdown 1.
MIFCO on countdown 1.
You are go for your voice check on Mission Freak Victor 1 with the PLT. So I caught that. Good voice check. We'll go ahead and check step 128 complete. RCOL.
This is Pegasus Launch Control. Launch time is 52 minutes, 25 seconds, and counting. Joining us now here at our Public Affairs Console in the Mission Directors Center is Ron Graby. He is the Vice President and General Manager for the Orbital Launch Systems Group. Ron is also a former astronaut and has flown 4 space shuttle missions previously. Ron, welcome very much. We're glad to have you here. And we'd like maybe for you to tell us a little bit about what's about to happen here. They're going to be going into a pattern, flying a racetrack pattern. Can you tell us a little bit about the pattern, what
Sure,
it is they're
George.
flying, how that works?
Sure, and first off, very pleased to be here. We just saw a couple minutes ago the aircraft take off. They're now climbing up to altitude, and they'll be proceeding out to the drop point. What they do first, actually, is they enter the drop box on a heading that's the reciprocal of the actual launch heading. They actually fly through the intended drop point on that reciprocal heading, and then they execute a teardrop procedure turn to align themselves with the launch heading and the launch track. Once inbound on that launch track, they've got a couple of minutes to acquire the precise track to take them through the desired drop point itself. When they reach the drop point, of course, they wait for the go from mission control to tell them that they're cleared to drop. And upon receiving that, they drop the vehicle, and the Pegasus ignites, and 5 seconds later, and it flies away.
What are the key things that are happening in the last 4 minutes? That's pretty important, and what's happening that's at that point that's so significant, especially in the last 45 seconds?
Well, it's a fairly concentrated period of activity in that last 4 minutes. As I said before, the main task that the pilot is accomplishing is he's aligning the aircraft on the desired drop heading and acquiring the drop track. The LPO in the back of the aircraft is performing some final power transfers to put the vehicle entirely on internal power to free it of aircraft power. And then in the last 45 seconds, the most critical phase of that checklist procedure, they unlock the pins that hold the control surfaces at the rear of the vehicle, and then they execute a fin sweep to ensure that those control surfaces are active and functioning properly. And that's all got to be done there in that last 45-second window and cleared so that they can get the go from mission control to go ahead and proceed with the launch.
Ron, tell us, if you would, what are some of the space shuttle orbiters you have flown on?
Oh, well, I flew the very first flight of Atlantis, flew the Atlantis a second time, and then got to fly on both Discovery and Endeavour.
Well, Space Shuttle Atlantis is about to have its dedication in the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex this coming weekend, and Atlantis will be staying at Kennedy. So we're glad to actually be able to recognize Atlantis, and that you actually have flown on it at this particular point in time, which is quite important.
I'm sure everybody's very happy to have Atlantis there at KSC, and that's certainly a good final place for it.
Ron, thank you very much for coming by.
George, my pleasure.
And we're at 48 minutes, 49 seconds before the launch of the Pegasus rocket with Iris. This is Pegasus Launch Control.
And Launch Team LC on countdown 1 with the status. We're currently in our climb cruise checklist. We're complete all steps through step 129. We're approximately 48 minutes from our drop time, expecting waypoint peak climb in approximately 5 minutes.
Frontier Orbital 1 on 23.275, unable 140.4.
Copy that, Orbital 1. Please switch 256.0. 256.0, please.
This is Pegasus Launch Control, 44 minutes 50 seconds prior to the launch of the Pegasus XL with Iris. The launch today is being controlled and managed from the NASA Mission Directors Center at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. The Iris Mission Operations Center is located at the NASA Ames Research Center in Moffett Field, California. Here, members of the team are monitoring the health of their particular system, while others are looking at the complete Iris spacecraft. Also, the command team will be issuing commands to the spacecraft during a designated command pass over one of the ground stations, and also checking the status of various systems. And the Mission Operations Center at NASA Ames will be with us throughout our countdown and into the flight after spacecraft separation. Back now at the Mission Director Center here at Vandenberg Air Force Base, we're joined by Jim Hall. Jim is the mission manager for the Launch Services Program for the Iris spacecraft and has been following it throughout its preparations to fly today on the Pegasus XL, and has worked a lot of the activities associated with the integration of the spacecraft with the Pegasus. So, Jim, welcome, and would like, first of all, perhaps to ask you, when did the Launch Services Program actually start becoming involved with Iris? When was that on our radar screen?
Well, George, it was really early on. I was back in June of 2009 when the Small Explorers Program awarded Iris. Our team was immediately, a mission manager was assigned, myself and a small core team. That next July of 2009, we attended a kickoff meeting, and we started to understand some of the spacecraft requirements. So that activity continued on, and we worked with them to understand the requirements for a period of about 6 months or so, and then we got into our Launch Services Task Order process, which is where we go off and award missions off of the NLS contract on the small class. So we went into that.
NLS is what?
NLS, NASA Launch Services contract. So we went off and did that competition, and on June of 2010, one year later, we awarded Iris. The Orbital Sciences team won the award of that LSTO, and then we got our bigger team together, and from that point forward, we've been all working very closely with the Iris team, and we've gotten to this point.
Well, looking at today, about how many personnel altogether are directly involved in our countdown and launch operations today, and what segments are they?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we've got over 120 or so NASA and contractor personnel supporting today, and they're all highly trained and have been working hard toward the moment that we're at right now. As I look at the L-1011 flying in the air right now, so there's a lot of.
I think that also includes our Air Force counterparts, which we've been working very closely with since we got here.
They sure have. They've been working very closely, and they've overcome some problems while we've been here. So it's been a really good team effort, and we've had some small challenges, but nothing that we couldn't overcome, and we've gotten to this point.
Well, we've got some really explanatory video of what all has happened with the Pegasus and then with Iris in preparation for the launch today. So we'll roll the video, and Jim, you could tell us what we're seeing.
Fantastic. Here is the Iris spacecraft being processed in the Lockheed Martin Sunnyvale plant up in California. This is a solar array deployment test that they ran there. As you can see, the Iris is a small spacecraft, and the solar arrays are only about 12 foot across. And the weight of the Iris spacecraft is about 400 pounds. We took it in the truck, and then we trucked it on down to the Vandenberg Air Force Base, and we arrived here at Building 1555. That's where the Pegasus was processing in parallel while Iris was coming on down. This is a view of the Pegasus first stage as we're panning across. Looking on the top section here, Pegasus from the top is the wing of the Pegasus, and towards the back we've got the fins and the nozzle. Here's our team. Some of the folks, we spent a lot of time testing and getting the Pegasus ready for the launch. And there's a lot of that testing and a lot of integration. As you can see, some of the test setup hardware there and the team members getting ready. We ran repeated tests to make sure everything was working right. Here's a great shot of the 3-stage Pegasus rocket, all 3 stages there. And there's the business end of the Pegasus. And you can see also the tail, the fins, which on the first stage, they direct the attitude control. In this shot, we're mating the first and second stages, and there's the orbital technicians as they're mating those 2 stages together. This will be the 42nd launch of the Pegasus system, and we've had a lot of success with this. It's been a great rocket for us. This is a nice shot of the enclosure, the clean enclosure that we have. When the spacecraft arrives, we mate that in that clean enclosure. Speaking of the spacecraft, there it is. And it just arrived, and that was back on April 19th. We're forklifting it out of the transportation truck there. And look, and you notice it's got lumalloy around it. You know, we've got a contamination-sensitive payload here. So we've got to make sure that it's covered up. And this is the shipping fixture. The team's kind of cleaning up around there, and they're going to prepare to lift the Iris spacecraft off of that fixture. That's what they're putting the bracketry on there, and they're going to put it onto our ground handling fixture, and we call it the Birdmobile. And they're getting ready to do that. And as soon as they get that on there, they're going to start looking. They started looking at, hey, did we have any post-shipment problems with it? So they did a complete checkout of it. And there's some of the Lockheed Martin team right there, just making sure their baby made it safely. So that was well done. And as you can see here, the Birdmobile going into the clean tent. And we're shoring it all up there. And then our spacecraft team were able to unwrap their present. And there she is, Iris. And you can see the Pegasus 3rd stage in the background there. The team's next job is to mate the Iris spacecraft with the Pegasus launch vehicle. And you can see the Birdmobile being positioned there. And then we tweak it right and left over right. These little tines you can see there. We have an isolation system that we have, a shock isolation system for this mission, so that we don't get any excessive vibration and shock on the payload. Moving immediately into encapsulation, you notice the starboard fairing door is already closed, and we're working on getting the port one closed there, and there's the team putting the finishing touches on that. And at this point in time, looks like a rocket. And there she is, and we hoisted her over onto that assembly integration trailer that you see there. And that's for preparations to roll out to the hot pad so we can mate up with the L-1011 orbital carrier aircraft. Early morning, we want to avoid the winds in this operation, so we're driving along. This is a couple of quick notes. The Pegasus weighs about 51,000 pounds, and it's about 55 foot long. Rolling it under the Stargazer, this is one of the only L-1011s that's flying in the United States right now, and we're getting ready to mate the Pegasus up there. He's securing 4 hooks up there over the wing. Interesting, we are jacked up 2 foot. We had to jack the L-1011 up 2 foot. See this jack and the little white yellow right there? Rolled that baby under there, installed it, AIT rolling back out, and hey baby, we're ready to fly.
Well, Jim, we noticed in the video that we saw that there's a name penciled on the fairing. Who is it, and what's the significance of it?
That is George Hale. We talked with the principal investigator. Iris is a sun sensing experiment. We're doing a lot. We're going to learn a lot about the sun, and the team wanted to recognize George Hale lived back, and he's in the late 1800s and early 1900s. He was an American solar astronomer, and he was a graduate of MIT that was responsible for many solar discoveries. So he also, interestingly, hired and encouraged Edwin Hubble, at the Mount Wilson Observatory. So he did all kinds of work. He did work on determining that sunspots have a magnetic signature to them, and he also played a central role in developing the California Institute of Technology into one of the leading research centers, research universities. So,
Jim, thank you very much for talking to us about what we've done to get to this point today, and the Pegasus and the IRIS spacecraft together, now flying along on this L-1011, being ready for launch. So,
my pleasure,
thanks, Jim, and best of luck tonight.
We're all excited, and go Pegasus and go IRIS.
At launch minus 34 minutes, 3 seconds, and counting, this is Pegasus Launch Control. This is Pegasus Launch Control, 31 minutes 50 seconds before the deployment of our Pegasus XL with IRIS. And joining us now here in the Mission Director Center is Jeffrey Newmark. He is the IRIS program scientist from NASA headquarters. And he's going to tell us a little bit about the science of what IRIS will see, and also a little bit about what's going to happen when the IRIS spacecraft comes off the Pegasus third stage tonight. So, Jeffrey, welcome. And first of all, tell us what region of the Sun the IRIS Observatory is going to focus on.
All right, George. Before I start, I actually just want to say what an honor it is to be part of this whole IRIS team. The whole team has been wonderful, and everyone is looking forward to a wonderful mission. So I'm just very proud to be part of it. IRIS will be focusing in on a layer of the Sun between the surface of the Sun, which is what we see. We also call that the photosphere, and the outer atmosphere of the Sun. We call that the corona.
Now, if I understand it, this region really hasn't been explored in a lot of detail to this point. Is that right?
That is correct. This is a very difficult region to understand and observe, and we haven't had the technical capabilities before now to really zoom in and look at this very thin region. This region is only a few thousand miles thick, and the Sun is over 1 million miles. It's a very small region, and we now have the technical capability, and also, equally important, we have the computing capability to understand what we're observing, and that's really important. Up until now, we just haven't understood the physics that goes on, and now we're hoping to use the observations to constrain our models and really move on.
Well, let's look now at the video, and if you'll tell us first what the spacecraft is doing right after it comes off the rocket, and then take us into our science.
Okay, so soon after launch, in just a little while from now, the spacecraft will be in, and we will, as it orbits the Earth, it's orbiting in a polar orbit. That means it's going around the Earth north-south, where it's always looking at the sun. We see here the solar arrays will be open, and that will power the spacecraft. The solar arrays provide all of the power for the spacecraft. At that point, we will go in and communicate with the ground and check out all of our systems. This checkout actually lasts about 3 weeks while we check out each of the systems and ensure the spacecraft is in proper operating orbit. After about 3 weeks or so, we will actually open up the telescope to begin our observations of the sun. At that point, we actually start again about another 4 to 6 weeks of characterizing the instrument, and finally we'll be able to look at the sun. And what you're seeing here now is the outer atmosphere of the sun, the million-degree corona. And here we're looking at some of the amazing imagery. These are actual images from our Solar Dynamics Observatory. These are not computer models. And you just see the tremendous dynamics, these bright, what we call active regions on the sun, the traces of the magnetic field. What we're trying to do with IRIS, as I said, is we've all this activity. We don't know exactly where it's coming from. Where's the energy? How does it get there? How does it get deposited? And IRIS was going to open up that new window to us on the very fine scale structure. IRIS will see things on the sun as small as 150 miles across, and see how that energy transfers in. That's really important for us here on Earth. Is these events like you're looking at here are prominences that are erupting from the sun. These actually are huge events that fill interplanetary space, and they impact us here on life. These events cause what we know as space weather. Space weather can impact our radio, our GPS location, our power systems on the Earth, and equally important, our astronauts and NASA assets throughout the whole solar system all can be impacted on this. So really, it all starts deep down in the solar atmosphere, where IRIS is going to be looking for the very first time, shedding new light on us.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you very much, and your real experience with this mission really starts with that spacecraft separation, because then you're on your way to a two-year mission, and that's really going to be the heart of where your expertise is going to be in play.
Well, my pleasure, and yes, myself and the entire IRIS team, of course, are just looking forward to a number of years of wonderful data, of wonderful insights, and most importantly, the new discoveries we're going to make that we don't even know what we're going to find out once we look at this.
Jeffrey, thank you very much, and best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're at 26 minutes 40 seconds before the launch of the Pegasus with the IRIS spacecraft. This is Pegasus Launch Control.
And I copy waypoint P launch.
Affirmative, and turbulence smooth. Winds 232/24, and we're in the clear above Broken Cirrus.
And I copy that readback PLT. We'll go and check step 135 and 136. And launch team, LCM Countdown 1, be advised we are going to go ahead and avoid steps 133 and 134 and not perform a visual inspection with Chase today.
This is Pegasus Launch Control, launch minus 23 minutes, 16 seconds, and counting. The so-called drop box, for which the L-1011 is heading in this racetrack pattern, is about 10 miles wide and 40 miles long. At the time of launch, the L-1011 carrier aircraft will be traveling at a speed between 560 and 610 miles an hour at an altitude of 39,000 feet. It's about 7.4 miles above the Pacific Ocean. Once the drop command is given, the Pegasus will free fall for 5 seconds, and then the rocket ignites. The flight will last 13 minutes and 6 seconds, after which the spacecraft separation from the Pegasus occurs, and then the deployment of the solar arrays starts 3 minutes later. Small green icon that is moving that we see, that is the plane. We're in constant communication with the L-1011 as well as watching the Pegasus, and the tracking data and telemetry of the Pegasus flight today is primarily being provided to us by the 30th Space Wing Tracking Station at Vandenberg Air Force Base. It will be furnishing telemetry to our telemetry facilities through about 11 minutes and 5 seconds. Then, in addition to that, a DC-8 telemetry aircraft from NASA's Dryden Flight Research Center is stationed downrange over the Pacific Ocean and will acquire the rocket about 27 seconds after the first stage ignition. It will have contact through spacecraft separation, relaying the data back by satellite to the NASA telemetry station at Vandenberg until spacecraft separation occurs 13 minutes and 6 seconds after launch. And in addition, for our IRIS spacecraft, in addition to the tracking and data relay satellite system that's also supporting the launch from space, ground stations are located at McMurdo Station in Antarctica, Wallops Island, Virginia, Fairbanks, Alaska, and Svalbard, Norway. The first ground station contact will occur through McMurdo at approximately launch plus 28 minutes, which, assuming our on-time launch, would be at about 7:56 p.m. Pacific time. Coming up now on 20 minutes and counting. T-minus 20 minutes and counting.
And LPO, this is LC on Victor 1.
C, LPO, Victor 1, go ahead.
Yeah, request from engineering to reset our AACS temp set point to 100 degrees F. How copy?
LPO copies. Set AACS set point to 100.
Good copy.
Should work. LC, LPO set point is 100 degrees.
Copy 100.
This is Pegasus Launch Control, launch minus 18 minutes, 8 seconds, and counting. We're going to look at a very brief video now, taking on board the L-1011 that shows exactly what will happen in the cockpit when our chase plane commander and pilot prepare to drop the Pegasus rocket. Don Walter will be flying the plane, and then the co-pilot, Eb Harris, actually pushes the button that drops the rocket. So we're going to listen now to Ed Dunlop, who is part of the Lockheed, or rather the Orbital Sciences aircraft operations, explain something about how that is going to work.
On command, he would lift this guard, arm, enable the rocket, and on command from the launch conductor, he would raise this guard, and once the rocket is armed, hit that release button, and that would release the rocket.
Once again, back to live video of the L-1011 flying over an undercast. We're now at 16 minutes, 30 seconds before the launch of the Pegasus XL.
Copy. LPO, check 140. PLT, confirm release arm.
PLT, pilot confirms release arm.
And I copy that. PLT, check step 141. And launch team LC on countdown 1, step 142. At this time, I'd like to poll for readiness for Pegasus to FTS internal power. MIFCO?
MIFCO, go.
MIFCO is go. ROC?
Rock, go.
Rock is go. Peg?
Peg is go.
Peg is go. Launch team is go for FTS to internal power. Check 142. LPO LC step 143, transfer Pegasus FTS to internal power.
LC, LPO, FTS to internal power on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. FTS external power supply is off.
Copy, check 143. Go LC, countdown 1, verify FTS on internal power. And MIFCO LC, countdown 1, verify FTS on internal power.
Stand by.
PEG LC, note FTS voltage and currents.
LC PEG, FTS on internal power, nominal.
Copy, check 145.
This is MIFCO. We are in internal power.
MIFCO, copy that, MIFCO. Check step 144. SMD LC on countdown 1, step 136 alpha, confirm readiness to transition Iris to internal power.
Iris is ready to transition to internal power.
Copy that. LPO, you go for step 136 Bravo, transition Iris to internal power.
LC, Philadelphia, in work.
Team LC on countdown 1. At this time, I'd like to poll for final FTS checks. MIFCO. MIFCO, LC, countdown 1.
This is MIFCO.
Poll for final FTS checks.
Okay, we're holding off. Stand by.
LC, payload LPO, section 4.1 complete, iris on internal power.
Copy, payload LPO, check step 136 Bravo complete.
And LC, time is 02:14:10.
And I copy 02-1410. First PSC LC, countdown 1, step 136 Charlie, verify iris on internal power and nominal.
LC, this is PSC, iris on internal power and nominal.
Copy that, check 136 Charlie. And MIFCO LC on countdown 1. And MIFCO LC, countdown 1.
PM.
MIFCO.
Yeah, pull for final FTS checks.
MIFCO, standby.
Ready.
Peg. Peg is go. Peg is go. And LPO LC, pull for final FTS checks.
Can you wait till PIP, LC?
Hi, MIFCO. LC, Victor 1.
LC, LPO is go.
LPO is go.
FTS.
Ready.
All right, Fistbow's ready at step 146. LC, Fistbow's ready at 146.
And MIFCO LC, pull for final FTS checks.
Ready.
MIFCO is go, check 146. MIFCO, send arm command, continue tone 4 when function removed.
Arm command on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. +1, function removed. Tone 4 continued.
And LC PEG, FTS checks nominal.
And MIFCO, verify FTS checks nominal.
FTS checks nominal.
Copy, check step 149 and 148. Flight crew, be advised that with FTS checks are complete, check step 150. PLT, your go to power off anti-collision lights.
PLT, and work.
Copy and work, check 151.
On my mark, 3, 2, 1, mark.
This is Pegasus Launch Control, launch minus 10 minutes and counting. It's another live shot of our NASA IRIS Mission Operations Center, which is located at the NASA Ames Research Center in Moffett Field, California. Members of the team are monitoring the health of their particular system, as well as the IRIS spacecraft.
And LWO, LC, countdown 1.
Go ahead at NASA CE.
Yeah, we want to talk about...
LWO weather is green.
Copy, weather green, check 154. PEG LC, report readiness for internal power.
PEG is ready for internal power.
Orbital, this
PEG go, check 155.
LPO copies, I'm go for internal Pegasus to internal power. Pegasus to internal on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. External power supply is off.
LC PEG, avionics on internal power and nominal.
Copy, PEG, check 157. And LPO, step 158, verify drop waypoint entered in GPS.
LC, LPO, drop waypoint is entered.
Copy, check 158.
That's Jim Stowers, our launch panel operator. He's also the orbital mission manager for this flight, and he's supported on board by Fred First, who's the payload launch panel operator, both from Orbital Sciences.
1, mark.
On the inland net,
copy L-7,
ready to conduct the final launch readiness poll for the IRIS mission. Please respond go, no go, NASA CE.
Yeah, NASA CE go.
SMA.
SMA's go.
SMD.
SMD is go.
NASA MIM.
NASA MIM is go.
NAM.
NAM is ready.
NLM copies. The NASA team is ready for IRIS launch.
Copy aft camera. Check step 161. Check step 162. And PLT, this is LC on Victor 1.
LC, PLT, L minus 5 minutes. 3, 2, 1, mark.
And PLT, I copy L-5. Check step 163 complete. And launch team LC on countdown 1. At this time, I'd like to poll for final launch readiness. SC?
SC go.
SC is go. OD?
OD is go.
OD is go. PEG?
PEG is go.
PEG is go. Orbital?
Orbital is go.
Orbital is go. NLM?
NLM is go.
NLM is go. LDA?
This is LDA, clear to launch.
LDA, clear to launch. Launch team is go to proceed with final checklist at L-4. Check 164.
LC, PLT, L minus 4 on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
Once Pegasus launches, it will be headed on a launch azimuth of 198.6 degrees.
And PLT, I did copy L-4. ROC, report range status.
Rock, range green.
Rock, range is green, check 166. And I can verify launch window is go. And I can verify launch window is go, check 167. LC, report readiness for transient power.
LC PEG, go for transient power.
Copy, check 168.
LC, PLT. 3, 2, 1, mark.
PLT, I copy L-3. And PLT, be advised, delay your L-2 call by 1 minute.
PLT, copy.
LPO, LC, step 169, apply transient bus power.
Transient power on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
LC PEG, transient power on and nominal, vehicle is safe.
Copy, check 170, and PEG, confirm ready to configure SIGI for flight.
LC PEG, ready to configure SIGI for flight.
Copy, check 171.
That's configuring
LC,
the
step
guidance system on the
172, proceed
Pegasus.
to configure SIGI for flight.
LC, LPO, in work. Configure SIGI for flight. 3, 2, 1, mark.
Copy, LPO, check 172.
Launch in minus 2 minutes.
LC Peg, SIGI configured for flight.
Copy that, Peg. Check 173.
LC, PLT, L minus 2, 3, 2, 1, mark.
Copy L-2 PLT, check 175, and you go to acquire launch heading at 183.7 mag.
LC, PLT, stand work.
Copy and work, check 176.
LC, PLT, L minus 1, 3, 2, 1, mark.
And I copy L-1, check step 177. LPO, you go to activate fin battery at L-45 seconds.
2, 1, mark. Good. Starboard now. Port now. Rudder now. Then sweep now. Then sweep now. Then sweep now. F12. Then sweep now. Then sweep now.
LC, Peg is go for launch.
LC is go for launch. PLT confirm.
Confirm.
Stand by for deployment.
PLT, drop of my mark. 3, 2, 1, drop.
Pegasus away.
Pegasus is away.
Vehicle is fully armed.
And ignition of the Pegasus rocket.
Attitude remains nominal. Power buses remain strong with good voltage on all buses.
This Pegasus is underway.
The actuator system is operating properly. Fins are following commands and controlling the flight of the vehicle. Attitude remains nominal. 35 seconds into the IRIS mission, we're past max Q. Vehicle power buses remain nominal. Vehicle is flying along the nominal predicted track, indicating good performance. Attitude remains nominal over 50 seconds into the flight. We're now over 100,000 feet in altitude, traveling over 4,000 miles an hour. Power buses remain strong. Approximately 10 seconds to stage 1 burnout. Stage 1 is burned out. Approximately 15 seconds to stage 1 separation and stage 2 ignition. Attitude remains nominal. Power bus is nominal. Stage 1 SEP, interstage separation. Stage 2 ignition is confirmed. Power buses remain strong, good voltage on all buses. Attitude remains nominal. Vehicle continues to fly along the nominal predicted track.
And at this point, we lose our tracking of the chase plane with the chase plane of the Pegasus. We'll be looking for it with ground cameras if available.
Stage 2 TVC is operating nominally. The nozzle is following commands and controlling the flight of the vehicle. Fairing separation confirmed. Right and left half is separated. Attitude remains nominal after the deployment of the fairing. Approaching 150 seconds into the IRIS mission, all systems are performing nominally. Vehicle velocity is now 11,000 miles an hour, approaching 100 miles in altitude. Attitude remains nominal. Stage 2 is burned out. Vehicle is now in a prolonged coast phase as we coast up to the insertion altitude. All systems are operating nominally. Now 180 seconds or 3 minutes into the IRIS flight. Telemetry is being broadcast from the Stage 3 antennas, and we have solid lock on telemetry in the center. Stage 2 predicted burnout point matches very nicely with the nominal prediction. The flight computer on board the Pegasus vehicle has calculated the Stage 3 ignition time. Stage 3 ignition time is 538 seconds, and that is right on the nominal value. So the coast phase that the vehicle is in will last approximately 5 more minutes as we coast up to an insertion altitude of approximately 328 miles. Power buses remain strong. Telemetry link is good. Now approximately 240 minutes into the mission. The altitude is over 200 miles. Vehicle velocity is 11,600 miles an hour. All systems are operating nominally.
The nominal orbit for the IRIS spacecraft will be 387.5 by 418.7 miles.
All systems continue to operate nominally during the coast phase as the vehicle approaches the insertion altitude.
IRIS will orbit the Earth every 97 minutes.
We're approaching 300 seconds into the IRIS mission. All systems are operating nominally. The vehicle is over 250 miles in altitude at a speed of over 11,000 miles an hour. Attitude remains nominal. All power buses remain strong, good voltage, and expected current on all buses. We are approximately 6 minutes into the Pegasus IRIS mission. All systems are operating nominally. Again, the vehicle is still in the coast phase. Stage 3 ignition is expected at 538 seconds, and we are now at 368 seconds. Power buses remain nominal. During this coast phase, the vehicle RCS system is being used to maintain vehicle attitude. Now at 400 seconds into the mission, the vehicle is at an altitude of 329 miles. Velocity is 10,800 miles an hour.
Our actual launch time was 7:27:30, decimal 000.
And this is a peg on the countdown net. We're now at 435 seconds into the Pegasus Iris mission. All systems continue to perform nominally, a little less than 100 seconds away from stage 3 ignition.
That's the voice of Steve Hollow, the flight systems engineer
In
for Orbital
approximately
Sciences.
20 seconds, the RCS system will be used to reorient the vehicle in preparation for stage 3 ignition. Attitude remains nominal. Power buses remain strong. Vehicle is now maneuvering into the stage 3 ignition attitude. RCS is performing nominally. Vehicle attitude remains nominal during the maneuver.
Stage 3 ignition in 30 seconds.
Power buses remain strong. Vehicle reorientation maneuver is complete. We are now at the appropriate stage 3 ignition attitude. In approximately 20 seconds, we'll have stage 2 separation, followed about 11 seconds later by stage 3 ignition. Stage 3 TVC is powered on. Stage 2 separation. 5 seconds to stage 3 ignition. Stage 3 ignition. Attitude remains nominal. Telemetry beginning to take hits. We are LOS in the center. And this is Peg on the countdown net. We have LOS in the center. All indications are that the vehicle was operating nominally when we went over the horizon for radio. So stand by for AOS, hopefully by airborne asset.
It's loss of the tracking signal to Vandenberg, standing by now for Dryden's DC-8 to acquire.
And we have AOS in the center. We have good telemetry. All systems appear to be continuing to operate nominally. We're still in the stage 3 burn. Attitude remains nominal. And we have stage 3 burnout. The vehicle is in orbit, and we are at a nominal target orbit for the IRIS mission. We're now going to enter a coast phase where we reorient the vehicle in preparation for payload separation. That will last approximately 2 minutes and 30 seconds from this point forward. Attitude remains nominal. The vehicle RCS is being used to control the vehicle attitude and is now pointed in the appropriate direction for IRIS payload separation. Power buses remain strong, good voltage, and good current on all buses.
PSC on Evan, go ahead. We do.
Attitude remains nominal. We're 650 seconds into the mission. Expect payload separation at 786 seconds. Copy that. And GNC reports that we have an excellent on-target orbit for IRIS. This is Peg in the center. We are experiencing some loss of telemetry, which is just due to link margin. And this is Peg in the center. We have LOS at this time. Ken, this is Peg on the countdown net. We do have LOS by local Vandenberg sites. Unfortunately, we do not have the airborne asset collecting telemetry, so that is the reason that we are LOS. It is not associated with the performance of the Pegasus launch vehicle. And this is Peg on the countdown now. We still have LOS. The reason for that is that the airborne aircraft that was sent up to receive telemetry downrange did not pick up a signal. It has not been able to track the signal. That was not a problem associated with the Pegasus launch vehicle. As we saw, the local range telemetry was strong until we went over the radio horizon. And predicted payload SEP would occur in 12 seconds. And just for note, the UTC of drop was 02:27:46. UTC of drop was 02:27:46. Predicted payload separation, and this is just based on the timer running here in the center, is now. We do not have telemetry to confirm that. However, we do have enough data to provide the spacecraft with a state vector, so that is in work at this time. This is Peg on countdown. We'll go ahead and report the orbit that we had at the loss of telemetry. We had an apogee of 669.98 kilometers, which is right on target. We had a perigee of 622.96, again, which is right on target. An inclination of 97.899, again on target. And an ML-tan of 060235, again, right on target. So a great insertion orbit for IRIS. State vector is in work.
And an update to our launch time, 727.44.000. 727.44.000.
On that, we have a report that IRIS is being tracked by the TDRS relay satellites. Those satellites are reading telemetry from the spacecraft, which is obviously separated successfully from Pegasus, to their ground station. So congratulations, IRIS. This ends the Pegasus mission and begins the IRIS mission to study the sun.
So, confirmation that we have had IRIS spacecraft separation from the Pegasus rocket, and IRIS is on the way, providing us an understanding of more about the atmosphere of our sun and how it affects us here on Earth. And the L-1011 will now be returning to Vandenberg Air Force Base. Here is where the action will be at the NASA Ames Research Center, where our Mission Operations Center is located. We can see the command console there where spacecraft will be commanded. Once ground contact is made, our first have confirmation that the IRIS team has been able to command the spacecraft. That's coming through TDRS. Sure to have our first ground contact through McMurdo. The L-1011 should be back in about another 11 to 12 minutes back here at the runway at Vandenberg.
to verify.
Mark, this is PSC on ops. We see telemetry down in 836.
ACS confirms all 3 torque rods are functioning.
Check step 198 Alpha with that transmission.
Copy that, LC.
Flight systems.
And Pegasus engineering team, be advised that IRIS has good telemetry through TDRS. They've actually commanded the spacecraft at this point, and they are expecting a first ground pass at McMurdo approximately 20 minutes after payload separation.
I didn't record them directly, but the verbal transmission where they were right on.
It puts us 12 minutes and 30 seconds from now
ML10
for the first ground station pass.
Once again, this is our NASA Ames Mission Operations Center for IRIS. They are receiving good data from the spacecraft through the tracking and data relay satellite system.
PM, this is PSC on admin. Go ahead.
They have successfully commanded the spacecraft.
On the solar arrays.
It is power positive.
Power. Eventually, when we're dead on, I would expect us to pull a little bit more. We're still drawing a little power out of the current. Out of the battery. To the best of our knowledge, yes, at the moment.
And
we will know
LPO,
for sure.
Be advised that the payload is reporting that they're able to command the spacecraft through TDRS.
LPO copies. Thank you.
And waiting that we have confirmation of the solar array deployment and the power is flowing through the arrays. It is getting power through the batteries at the moment.
Go ahead. I'll double check with the mock. I believe I overheard that they did, but let me confirm.
Thank you.
This is Pegasus Launch Control at a mission elapsed time of 21 minutes, 42 seconds into the flight of the IRIS spacecraft. And joining us now here at the console is Tim Dunn, our NASA Launch Director for tonight's mission. And Tim, first of all, tell us briefly what you know about the spacecraft at this point.
So, George, we're thrilled. We're very excited. Spacecraft, we've made initial contact with it through the TDRS network, gotten good data back. The solar arrays did begin to deploy, and everything is proceeding right on track with the nominal expected timeline after spacecraft separation from Pegasus.
Tell us about the flight. Early on, it seemed to go well, and then it got interesting toward the end in terms of what we were able to learn. So, give us some insight on that.
Yeah, it was a thrilling afternoon here at Vandenberg Air Force Base as we watched the L-1011 prepare to take off and head out over the Pacific Ocean, head northwest, make its turn. We had relatively few issues. One minor range asset that's located down at Point Magoo gave us a little bit of trouble, but the range was able to bring that back in and online. We experienced a little bit of a signal issue with our FTS system. You may have heard the AGCs were erratic at times. That was mostly attributable to as we were traveling out and the orientation of the aircraft in relation to the ground assets here at Vandenberg and at the Western Range. Once we made the turn for coming back toward the south, AGCs locked in really well. We were able to do those final FTS checks, no problem.
That's the automatic gain control.
The automatic gain control on those AGC values, right. So that put us minutes away from launch. One of the critical events that happens with Pegasus is you activate a thermal battery on board Pegasus that is able to move the fins and the rudder on the vehicle. So we made that activation at approximately 45 seconds prior to drop, and then you may have heard the repeated call-outs of fin sweep, and that's not fully unexpected. We don't typically see that in flight, but the procedure does account for it, and we reissued the command numerous times, and I think it was on about the 5th reissuance of that command we did get movement with the fins, and once you get initial movement, you're verified that you're going to be good for flight. So we got through that. That was a very tense moment, as you can imagine, here in the control center. But once we cleared that, we were about 30 seconds away from launch, had a nominal drop from the L-1011. We had a nominal ignition. First, second, and third stage burns were all very good. You may have heard we did lose downrange telemetry real time. We did have an aircraft in the Pacific Ocean downrange that was scheduled, that did pick up the telemetry data from Pegasus. However, due to an onboard issue, they were unable to retransmit that data to us live. We do have that recorded on the aircraft, and we'll be reviewing that when the plane lands and we get those tapes.
All right, and I think we're watching for some video of the L-1011 about to touch down back here at Vandenberg. The indication, though, that we had a good flight actually came from the tracking data relay satellite, which told us the satellite was, I guess, where it should be, when it should be.
We were able to confirm that we had a nominal spacecraft separation from Pegasus. Even though we did not have the downrange telemetry asset, we did have the on-orbit TDRS network of satellites, and they were able to pick up and confirm spacecraft separation and turn on, and then give us that initial indication that all the initial sequence, including solar array deployment, was nominal.
Here comes the chase plane. We're not going to cover that. Okay, well, let's put it up. That's our chase plane coming back that provided the video to us of the deployment and the drop.
Yeah, I'd like to thank our friends at Dryden for supplying us with that beautiful onboard chase video that we were able to see all afternoon.
So if the chase plane's on the ground, the L-1011 won't be far behind. So, Tim, we'd like to thank you very much for giving us a status. It appears that we've had a very successful launch, and at this point it appears that we've also got a happy spacecraft on orbit.
We've got a very happy spacecraft on orbit. We've got a thrilled launch team on the ground. And this has just been a great couple of weeks that we've had here at Vandenberg. I would like to thank Colonel Baltz, the 30th Space Wing Commander, and his team provided exceptional support to us. We worked through a couple of difficulties on the range, but only cost us one day, and here we are with a successful launch on our backup day, and we're very happy. Would like to give a shout out to Albert Sierra. Albert, I hope you're still watching us from Brevard County. We miss you, and we love you.
And Albert Sierra is one of our mission managers at Kennedy Space Center that's key to the launch services program, and has had a setback that we hope will bring him back onto the team here very shortly.
Absolutely.
So at this point, we're getting ready to show our launch replays, and we're also going to keep an eye out for the L-1011 arriving back here at Vandenberg. And once we get through that, then we'll be wrapping up our broadcast. Right now, we are 27 minutes, 59 seconds into the IRIS mission. This is Pegasus Launch Control. L-1011 is going to be doing some touch and goes, some go-arounds, landing on the runway, taking off again, and then eventually coming back for a wheel stop, taking off again into the Pacific sunset. And we'll look now at some replays of the launch of the Pegasus rocket with IRIS. And we're back now at the IRIS Mission Operations Control Center at NASA Ames, where they continue to monitor the status of IRIS on orbit, which appears to be going very well. So at this point, we will conclude our coverage of the launch of the Pegasus XL rocket on a successful flight to deploy the IRIS Solar Observatory on orbit to begin its 2-year mission. At 34 minutes, 15 seconds into the mission of IRIS, this is Pegasus Launch Control. Toward a targeted taxi of the L-1011 at 6:15 Pacific time. Right now the fairing area is being prepared for that taxi. Here we see the nose and the fairing of the Pegasus rocket and the final disconnection of the system so that we're now ready to taxi to the end of the runway. IRIS is planned as a 2-year NASA Small Explorers solar science mission. Our partners are Lockheed Martin Space Systems, the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory, Montana State University, Stanford University, and the NASA Ames Research Center. At launch minus 1 hour, 18 minutes, 50 seconds, and counting, this is Pegasus Launch Control.
We did that in the briefing, yeah.
Okay, roger that.
LC vehicle ground up.
And vehicle LC, go ahead.
Step 111.1, PWP 16020, part 6 complete.
LC copies vehicle, and vehicle step 114, report vehicle closeout when vehicle closeout is complete, and report when ready for taxi.
LC vehicle, RBF items removed, area clear, PWP 16020 complete, ready for taxi.
LC copies vehicle, we'll go ahead and check step 114 complete. Launch team, this is LC on ground ops. At this time, activity on ground ops will now terminate. Transition all operations to countdown net and mission frequency. Our assigned mission frequency to begin with will be Victor 1. Check step 115. Go, Peg. LPO, LC, ground up.
LC, Peg 10, and work.
LC, PEG-TM, Duitron recording, ready for taxi.
And PEG-TM, I copy that. Duitron's recording. You're ready for taxi. Check step 116 complete.
Captain Don Walter is talking with our launch conductor Adam Lewis here in the Mission Director Center. He has also been talking with our chase plane pilot Jim Less, and we anticipate seeing the chase plane to depart as well. Just cleared the captain to start engine number 3 on the L-1011.
Remaining standby.
Please respond go, no go. NASA CE.
NASA CE is go.
SMA.
SMA is go.
SMD.
SMD is go.
NASA MIM.
NASA MIM is go.
NAM.
NAM is ready.
NLM copies. The NASA team is ready for the orbital carrier aircraft takeoff.
Operation. In our mission constraints document, under section Echo Decimal 2 mission specific constraints, item 1, under takeoff criteria, our no earlier than time for today's operation is 012758 UTC. Our no later than time is 013258 UTC.
Emitting blasts of radiation into space that threaten satellites and communications networks.
The sun affects our weather. The sun affects us in a lot of different ways.
The IRIS spacecraft will study the sun in conjunction with other solar sensing spacecraft, including NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory, or SDO. The main difference between the IRIS mission is that it looks at a tiny portion of the sun at a time, not the whole disk.
It almost acts like a microscope for SDO's overall telescope. So it's going to look in closely, and it's going to be looking at that specific region to see how the changes in matter and energy occur in this region.
Scientists designed the instrument to return specific data, but they also expect some unexpected results from time to time, too.
The big surprises will come when we start to see the data, because we know to some extent what we hope to learn what types of observations will answer those questions, but there's always that element of surprise.
A Pegasus rocket built by Orbital Sciences has been employed to lift the observatory into Earth orbit. The Pegasus, which with its wing and tail sections looks a lot like an airplane, is the only launcher of NASA mission that drops from a converted airliner before igniting its first stage engine. Designed as an inexpensive alternative to launch small missions, Pegasus rockets have recorded dozens of successful launches.
The Pegasus launch system is unusual and unique in that you have a mobile launch pad. Pegasus is dropped from the belly of an L-1011 aircraft at 40,000 feet that's traveling downrange at over 500 miles per hour. Pegasus launch system has the theoretical capability of launching from any point on the surface of the Earth.
Pegasus missions have begun from Cape Canaveral, Florida, Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia, Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, and Kwajalein Atoll in the Pacific Ocean. Because the IRIS spacecraft will fly a path that takes it roughly over each of Earth's poles on each orbit, the mission will launch from Vandenberg. The L-1011 will take off from Vandenberg and release the rocket off the California coast, heading south.
What I'll remember most about the IRIS launch is what I remember from all my missions, and that's the people. I'm blessed with a terrific launch team, the NASA team members, as well as Orbital Science Corporation and Lockheed Martin for both the launch vehicle and spacecraft, all terrifically talented and eager and excited to go launch IRIS.
The biggest surprise will come once the mission is launched and it starts to observe the sun. We always try to map out what sort of events we're going to be targeting, what sort of observations we will be making of those events to improve our understanding of the solar atmosphere and space weather.
We're always looking for the answers of why the physics of our solar system and our planets work. And everything starts at the root with the sun.
This is Pegasus Launch Control at launch minus 1 hour 19 minutes 51 seconds and counting. Continuing to... This is Pegasus Launch Control at launch minus 1 hour 27 minutes and counting. Preparations are on schedule for the launch of the Orbital Sciences Pegasus XL rocket carrying NASA's IRIS spacecraft. The call to stations for the launch team was at 2 o'clock this afternoon Pacific time, and the launch countdown began at 2:30 p.m., approximately 5 hours prior to the opening of the launch window. Going through the pre-takeoff checklist takes 3 hours and 35 minutes to complete. The L-1011 is scheduled for departure at 6:15 p.m. Pacific time, with the drop of the Pegasus from the L-1011 targeted to occur precisely at 7:27:34 p.m. Pacific time. The planned launch window is 5 minutes in duration. The time from the L-1011 wheels up to the drop of the Pegasus is 58 minutes. The weather forecast for today continues to call for a 20% chance of not meeting the launch weather criteria, primarily due to cloud constraints. For NASA, this will be the 19th flight of a Pegasus rocket, the 42nd Pegasus launch for Orbital Sciences. We'll look now at a brief video telling the story of the IRIS mission and our preparations by the Launch Services Program to launch the IRIS spacecraft today on the Pegasus XL.
Researchers will soon send a 7-foot-tall observatory on a mission to discover some of the secrets behind the largest body in the solar system, the Sun. Scientists placed a renewed emphasis on the sun in recent years since it plays such a large role in everything from determining our planet's climate to knocking out orbiting satellites and even taking down power grids on Earth. After launching into Earth orbit aboard a winged Pegasus rocket, NASA's IRIS spacecraft, short for Interface Region Imaging Spectrograph, will stare at the sun with a steady eye, concentrated on the region between the sun's surface and its blazing atmosphere, or corona. The region is called the chromosphere, and it's here that temperatures rise from 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit on the surface to millions of degrees in the glowing corona. Researchers don't know why that change occurs, but are betting IRIS will tell them.
I think that the uniqueness of this mission and why it's important is that the mission is looking at the sun, our only sun. We know a lot about the surface of the sun. Massive temperature changes occur in this region. Why? We don't understand this unique region of the atmosphere of the sun.
IRIS will show the solar chromosphere in more detail than has ever been observed before. My opinion is that we're bound to see something we didn't expect to see.
The sun often is thought of as little more than a giant nuclear furnace that sits at the center of the solar system and warms our planet. But its effects on Earth are profound, with its heat-driving weather patterns and CMEs, commonly known as solar flares.
And Peg, LC on countdown 1, report ready for taxi.
LC Peg, ready for taxi.
LC copies, check 118 complete. And launch team LC on countdown 1 with an updated status. The engineering team has worked a new waiver that's been approved by management. This is actually an update to an existing black line. This is Echo 2, item number 8. This is the fairing air temperature at 0 and 180 degrees. Takeoff criteria is now less than or equal to 25 C for 15 of the last 30 minutes. Again, that's for takeoff criteria. Temperature is now less than or equal, is less than or equal to 25 degrees C for 15 of the last 30 minutes.
This is Pegasus Launch Control, launch minus 1 hour, 12 minutes, 36 seconds and counting. Our L-1011 now taxiing toward the end of the runway. Our